Okay, if I did everything right, we are on YouTube, we are on Rumble, we are on Locals, and we should be on X.
What's X?
X, Twitter. It's the new name. I like to dead name them and call it Twitter, but
dead name them. That's funny.
Well, you know, isn't that the quote transphobe thing to do, is to dead name? Mm-hmm. So they have transitioned into becoming a new company called X. Did not want to dwell. We have so much freaking news. You just piled on a ton of headlines on me right before the show started. I'm wondering, do we have enough shows in the week to cover what's going on? Because it is insane.
I know. It is what it is, but crazy.
Wow. Somebody's saying echo, echo, echo. Weird.
Let's see.
Do you guys hear an echo in the crowd? Because I don't hear any echo at this point. So,
I don't hear anything.
Yeah. Somebody said help Scott Adams with his audio. That's funny.
That's funny.
If you've seen the show, he kind of has a long history of audio issues, and it is a little bit nutty. Let me see. I wanted to open with this story. I had a little bit that I found on my own. And I almost put this one as an intro, but I didn't get a chance to actually edit it together. Have you seen the CI director Panetta's little bit?
No.
Oh, you must, because he is a complete winner in all quotes. Let's see here.
You're a mess. Obviously, the House is in chaos as they try to find a speaker, but they're investigating still the Hunter Biden situation. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about that letter you signed on to from former intelligence officials saying that the laptop and the emails had all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. Obviously, the New York Post and others saying the Hunter Biden laptop letter was the real disinformation all along. That letter was used in the debate. I haven't asked you this, but do you have regrets about that now, looking back, knowing what you know now?
Well, Brett, look, I was extremely concerned about Russian interference and misinformation. And we all know it. Intelligence agencies discovered that Russia had continued to push disinformation across the board. And my concern was to kind of alert the public to be aware.
Whoop, 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 whoop. Panetta alert.
And frankly, I haven't seen any evidence from any intelligence.
No, I haven't seen anything.
Not the case.
You don't think that it was real?
I think that disinformation is involved here. I think
agree.
Russian
we all agree.
information is part of what we're seeing everywhere. I don't trust the Russians, and that's exactly why I was concerned that the public not trust the Russians either.
I don't want to dwell on this because we have bigger things to talk about and bigger urgency. But obviously, Hunter Biden said it was his laptop, and this investigation continues. So you don't have any regrets about doing what you did.
No, thank you. Thank you.
No, I don't have any regrets about not trusting the Russians.
Okay.
I don't think that was
Mr.
the question.
Thank you.
Of shit. But,
I'm sorry. Was that not
ahead.
a classic bullshit disinformation maneuver on his part? Even when he's told directly, Hunter Biden says it's his laptop, he starts laughing.
Look, he is a veteran politician. That's all I could tell you.
Yeah, and I figure he sees it as, I don't care. We won.
I don't care. I mean, it kind of reminds me of what's his name, the Tom Daschle, I think. Tom Daschle, was that who the Democrats had? The guy from the former boxer who was the Democratic leader. Maybe people can help me out. He was the speaker for the Democrats. Was it Tom Daschle?
It might be. I mean, the name sounds familiar. I don't know.
Well, he was the one that was hassling, making up stories about the Mormon candidate who ran against Obama, and his answer was, "We won, didn't we?"
Which, by the way, that answer was used too by Hillary, or maybe he took it from Hillary because remember Benghazi when she was, in front of Congress, and all she goes, "What? They're dead. It's too late. Move on." I mean, these people are just dark as hell.
Right? They are dark, bro. They are dark.
Oh, Tom Foley.
Oh, not Tom Foley. No.
Harry Reid. No.
Harry Reid, former pugilist. Okay. Harry Reid was the one who came up with all kinds of cock and bull story about the wonderful senator from Utah who apparently is not going to run again, from what I understand, and we're all better for it.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure that he's just not running on principle. Not that internal polls are saying everybody hates your guts, and you probably would lose even in a primary, which would be an embarrassment for a person who was actually a presidential candidate at one point.
Yeah, I agree. Gaston, the district attorney of Los Angeles, now has a 14% approval rating. So they're saying the same thing about Gascon, but the damage is already done. They will replace these people with another version of themselves with a different color. I said that they'll replace Gascon with a black female Marxist and continue the policies. That's how this is going to roll out in Utah too.
Oh yeah. Oh, I have
hold on a second. Hold on.
No doubt whatsoever. Let me see who's got in the chat here. Well, thank you, Suzanne Hill. Happy birthday to us as well, and thank you on the 100K.
That's really weird. Hold on.
Okay. He may be facing a CIA infiltration himself. Oh, I see. It's the shades. You can see the shades of closing because there's too much light on the subject.
Okay. Now that went out. Holy crap.
We've got some good technical mishaps firing.
I'm sorry. The entire house is blowing up. No, it's like the sun is going through the windows. I've got all kinds of issues here. But okay, go on.
Mark is on the opposite coast, and he can't.
Dude, it's completely disorienting. Every single part of this operation is disorienting. The lights aren't holding on the computer. It's overpowering. It's like the whole thing is falling apart. The sun was coming in. It's just crazy.
Well, we managed to hit 100,000, and we're experiencing a birthday. Did you know that, Mark? Today,
I didn't hear about that.
Sunday is our channel's birthday. We turned 2 years old.
Well, I think more importantly, 2 days ago was Oswald's birthday, and he would have been 84 years old today if Ruby didn't shoot him in the stomach.
Good point. And
something to think about. I mean, in theory, Eric, he could have been alive.
Yeah, well, and on that same note, tomorrow is the anniversary of the death of Helena Hutchins.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. That's crazy.
Yeah, our channel was the day after Alec Baldwin shot Helena Hutchins. It's a weird coincidence. God. And he kind of came up in the news this week. It appears that they are going to ham sandwich him to a grand jury.
Yeah, he's done. He's done. It's very interesting. You know what it is, Eric? I think they got new prosecutors who don't have a political agenda, who want to put a win in their column. You know how prosecutors want to win, Eric? You know what I mean? I don't think prosecutors, professional prosecutors, are in it for the Marxist win. I think regular prosecutors are in it for the win for themselves. It
could be. Yeah. But these same prosecutors are the ones who dropped the charges and then now have re-implemented. Now, what my theory is, because there was a little note in the story that in amongst a plea deal going in front of a grand jury. So I think Hannah is flipping. And I think what they did was they pulled the charges on Baldwin and then let Hannah sit out there hanging on her own completely. And now she's like, I'll tell you anything. I'll do whatever.
That could be true. That really could be true.
Suddenly we've got a grand jury situation. I could be wrong, but when I saw that, I'm like, who's the plea deal with? Well, how is that going on? Well, okay. Yeah. It would make sense to me if Hannah was now saying, I'll do whatever, well, put me in for 6 months. I'll give you anything you want.
Well, it could very well be. I mean, but I think he's getting indicted from what all the stars are aligning here.
Yeah, but it's interesting, though, that suddenly they found a grand jury to do this. Remember, they didn't have a grand jury, but now they do? I mean, what?
Well, they had a Zoom grand jury, but they didn't want to use it on Zoom. Apparently, they're still living in 2020 down there in New Mexico. Nobody's allowed to leave their home, according to the New Mexico Judicial Department. But now they're allowed out for this special grand jury.
Well, I don't know. Very, very weird situation. You sent me a link here, and I actually already had this one before, but you were asking if this could be a Clay Shaw situation. And I'm not sure if it's that or if this doesn't just coincide with the hit job that's coming up on Elon Musk, because you know that Peter Thiel and Elon Musk are pretty good friends, as far as I know.
It could be. It could be. I don't know. When you have businessmen cooperating with, this is more of a domestic Clay Shaw. Clay Shaw is more of an international CIA thing. You know, when he returned from overseas visiting Italy, he, like a lot of businessmen who do this, but CIA was his employer. There are businessmen who give reports about things overseas. This seems more domestic, Eric, than Thiel journeying to Greece or something, you know, or Italy like Clay Shaw did. I think this is more of could be a personal grudge against Musk. Who knows?
It could be, or it could be very legitimately. I guess we've gotten so cynical about the FBI and what they're up to and things. Maybe actually was, hey, there's a criminal in our midst, and let me help you with that information. You know,
I don't know who he's helping. I don't know what he did, so it's hard for me to tell. I don't know.
Well, he's publicly called on the FBI to investigate Google's ties to the Chinese government.
Right. But who is he informing on in terms of domestic FBI surveillance?
I'm not sure.
Right. Either am I. That's what I'm saying. It's very vague. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it might be a hit piece on Peter Thiel for all we know.
It could be. It could be.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting.
Just a weird little story. What else you got?
What else
no. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. I mean, you know, it is what it is. There's more will be revealed, as we say in this story.
For sure. Okay, we've got this one. Somebody sent this into here, which I'm sure it'll surprise you completely. Guess who is immediately on the side of the Palestinians in the current situation? The Ford Foundation.
Why is this news to you? They've been on it for 70 years.
Well, I know that, but I'm saying this is consistent with what we talked about in the Henry Ford episode.
So, they've never buckled. It's not a new story. I mean, they have a museum of death. This is a museum of death in Gaza about their successes of blowing up the Israelis and offing them, funded by the Ford Foundation. We mentioned that in the Henry Ford episode. If anybody wants to go look at that. It's not a new story, but Eric's right. I mean, has relevance to today, but it's continuous. I mean, that's why there are so many Palestinians in Dearborn, Michigan, for the love of God. He brought them there. Yep. He brought them. That's why they have elected officials who are Palestinians. It would be the equivalent of bringing 2 million Soviet communists here in the middle of the Cold War and having them elect a Soviet representative from Iowa or something. You know what I mean? It's the same as Obama dumping 1 million Somalis in the whitest state in the union, Minnesota, and now they've got Somali representation saying, you know, 9/11 was an event where a plane crashed into a building. I mean, this has to stop. This has to stop. There's immigration, legal and illegal. It used to be, until Ted Kennedy signed the Immigration Act in 1965, RFK's famous uncle, who I met drunk, me being drunk and everyone else being drunk.
Well, he was drunk too then.
He looked hung up. I couldn't say that. He was just in his underwear, in boxer shorts, Senator Kennedy, when we were watching the Nixon impeachment proceedings in Narragansett, Rhode Island, in the Kennedy compound there. So, or somewhere in Massachusetts. I don't want to give away their security, but anyway, that Immigration Act in 1965 which he vowed repeatedly, publicly, in numerous interviews, would not affect the demographics of the United States of America. That was a lie. He knew it was a lie. And that's when this whole game started.
True. Now, speaking of hiring and covering and things like that, you had the New York Times who did a dastardly job of covering the hospital attack this week. But Mark, good news, this literally just came in. They hired somebody to, or rehired somebody to cover the Israeli-Palestinian or Israeli-Hamas war.
Tommy Goebbels, the great grandson of Joseph Goebbels.
Not quite, but someone who celebrates him. This guy here.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, well, Solomon Hijay, I don't know how you say it, is a New York Times reporter who came under fire last year for praising Adolf Hitler in multiple resurface posts.
Mm-hmm.
So a huge fan of certain World War II figures is who you're going to rehire to cover this. So he gets fired for saying, hey, love these World War II folks. So let's go and hire him. The same week that they just screwed up this incomplete hospital coverage.
Well, the fact that Ted Lieu is going after them, I mean, this is like Che Guevara going after Fidel Castro for putting out a bad buffet. Ted Lieu, the extreme leftist Asian congressman from California, has gone after the New York Times today for committing a fake hoax of the bombing of the hospital in Gaza. But again, this is a newspaper that in 1939 said Poland invaded Germany. This is a newspaper that put the Holocaust on page 63 with car ads and pie recipes. This is a newspaper that denied the existence of the Holocaust for many, many, many years. This thing, whatever this deep state organ is a life unto itself. It is TASS plus Pravda plus steroids. That's what the New York Times is. Any schmuck who reads this paper, who's not working for the State Department, looking to read between the lines, is an idiot. Is an idiot. This thing is designed to deceive and propagandize any article. They might have a legitimate article. Yankees beat Baltimore 3-2 in third inning. Guy made an error. But other than that, every single thing is an editorial in that piece of shit paper. The LA Times is obviously a pale comparison circulation-wise to the New York Times. But nevertheless, anytime you open up any of these papers, every single article is now propagandized and editorialized from the far, far left, including this guy who loves Hitler. Now, keep in mind, this stuff is the love of these people by the left is really, really getting interesting because Hamas is now under a microscope. Let's just put it that way. They're under a microscope. And my take on Hamas, which I put up on Twitter the other day about what they stood for, if you stand with Hamas, this is what you're signing up for: anti-gay, anti-democratic principles, anti-LGBTQ, anti-defamation league, anti-Israel, anti-gravity, anti-civilization, anti-voting, I mean, this is what you're standing up for: anti-free process of judicial operations, a million anti-things. And it has come to my attention that this is really, as many writers have pointed out during World War II, Japan, Germany, and Italy became militarized totalitarian states, Eric, where every member of the state was in on the militarization of their own country. Everyone was put into power and the population of the state was with them. That's what a totalitarian state is, Eric. Everybody went along with Mussolini. Everybody went along with this guy's friend Hitler, and everybody went along in Tojo in those respective countries. They became fully militarized war machines. What I am suggesting and has dawned on me is that Hamas, duly elected by the people of the Gaza, have created a miniaturized totalitarian regime that is completely militarized from the grandmother to the 7-year-old with a machine gun raised above his head. Every single person is in on this thing, just like they were in the Empire of Japan, just like they were the people who lived around the concentration camp Dachau, who knew what was going on in that town, just like they did when they supported Mussolini in Italy. This is a miniaturized version of a totalitarian regime. That's what's going on here. Are they invading Switzerland? No. But would they put the Jews to death if they could? Absolutely true. If the Jews laid down their weapons today, they would be overrun and savagely killed by Hamas and their allies. Everyone knows that. If Hamas put down their weapons today, there would be peace in the Middle East. Nobody can get around that argument. And until they can get around that argument, they have nothing of interest to say in the dispute. Their crocodile tears for these bomb makers in Hamas are ridiculous. This may become one of the most decisive issues of our generation, Eric. We finally have a split in the culture that is so wide as to be the width of the ideological version of the Grand Canyon. Which side are you on has now become an easy refrain for us to see who's who on both sides of the aisle here. And I don't mean the political Republican or Democratic aisle. I mean the ideological Nazi versus democracy aisle. That's where we are now. Fascism, totalitarianism versus democracy and human values and civilization. That's what this represents. Which side are you on? U.S. destroyers yesterday shot down over 14 drones and 4 criminals. The U.S. destroyers off the coast of Israel. They shot them down that were heading into Israel. This is where we are right now. As you could almost feel it like a pre-World War II situation, and we're going to be covering that in a couple episodes coming up. I don't want to give it away, but we're going to get into this situation right before World War II happened, and how the German machine had infiltrated U.S. Propaganda outfits, including the New York Times, how they had plenty of pro-German sympathizers here in the United States, how they had huge rallies in New York at Madison Square Garden for the American Nazi Bund, how the Japanese were clearly inching up to attack Pearl Harbor, and how Italy invaded North Africa, and Mussolini was seizing things left to right with Italy, and they formed what they called themselves the Allies. We called them the Axis of Evil or the Axis, but they were the allies to themselves. They were 3 totalitarian regimes, and the 4th one, the Germans tried to take out, only they went in there too late. The stalling by the U.S. and Churchill and Britain before World War II, before the Brits knew that they were toast, and they were trying to get the arms from Roosevelt, which they eventually did get through Lend-Lease and through convoys protecting their shipping. Everything was designed to stall the Nazis. The entire war machine was designed, and this is the Japanese too. The Japanese and the Germans both realized they had to win these wars by 1942. Why? Because they had no resources to have a long war. That's why the Blitzkrieg happened. That's why Pearl Harbor happened. That's why they moved at lightning speed. What the Allies decided was to come together to go to each individual country, Bulgaria, go to Poland, go to Romania, and tell them to stall the Nazis. Why did they want to stall the Nazis? So the Nazis would go into the Soviet Union late in the game and get bogged down in the winter of the Soviets. That was our game. It was pretty damn smart. And it wasn't, there were some people who get into who came up with this, including British intelligence combined with U.S. People that we're going to discuss. But that was the shorthand game, was to stall the Germans so we can arm the Brits, we could get ourselves together because we didn't have anything going on, and then also to stall them. They were chomping at the bit 5 months earlier before Operation Barbarossa to go into the Soviet Union. And because there was resistance, not the French, but because there was resistance in other countries, the Germans had to put it off for 5 months, and therein sealed their military fate and ended World War II. it took a lot of lives and it took a lot of blood. And anyone who suggests that maybe we shouldn't have stood up to the Nazis, maybe we shouldn't have stood up to totalitarian regimes, that's where we are now, people. Fuck Hamas. These are totalitarian. This is a government elected by the people. This is a terrorist regime. They're listed as a terrorist organization by the United States and every country in the world. They've now been elected by the people of Gaza, freely elected as a terrorist organization to run their government. Okay? Hitler was elected, people. The Nazi Party was elected. These people were elected. And that's, if you're gay or you're trans, go to Gaza and see how well you do. See how long you last. Go over there with your LGBTQ supports Hamas sign and see how long you last over there with your bullshit that people can't even accept anymore, including Ted Lieu, as far left. The reason you're seeing these far leftists now denouncing Hamas is because even they see the writing on the wall. They're seeing the intelligence reports coming out, how Iran is getting ready to go in there, how the Turkish people are sitting on the fence. And you're talking about Turkey, you're talking about a NATO country with nuclear weapons. And whichever way the wind blows is going to determine which way this thing goes in regards to Turkey and Iran. And who knows what involvement China is involved in this, funding it or arming it or militarily. We now know that Ukrainian weapons and Ukrainian money has somehow drifted into Hamas hands.
All true. Now, on a good note, because we went yellow or demonetized like 20 minutes ago.
Oh, fuck that.
I'm happy to say we have a sponsor. And that's
great.
Back
hey,
again.
This is good. Let me tell you something. This coffee is great. The guy sent me a thing. I don't know what it was. Southern pecan flavored coffee.
Yeah.
Eric's right. It was absolutely delicious.
It is fantastic, but I have some good news for you. If you like that coffee, Mark, your only question about that coffee was, well, why not another kind of nut? Why not hazelnut? I was looking for some kind of hazelnut.
Yeah,
so,
I love hazelnut.
Well, when you get home and you check your mailbox, you may find something in there that looks a little like this.
Grobert's nuts. Okay, that's great. Holy mackerel. It's a crazy good blend of hazelnut, oil, and chopped hazelnuts paired with world-class Nicaragua Sandinista Caturra coffee bean.
That's right.
Wow, that's hysterical.
What I love is the title, because it can be taken two ways.
Right.
Either you own the nuts or you are nuts. And I agree.
It's probably both. It's probably both. Yeah.
And I will also share with everybody, they have merch now, like the coffee flavor I took. You can always drink it out of your own adrenaline injection cup.
Wow.
And that's available onto their site. And I may be tipping things off early and getting in trouble, but I suggested that they get into a subscription service. I think that'll be rolling out anytime. So if you like it, you can also subscribe to it.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Yeah, because who wants to sit there? Oh shit, I'm out. You know, if you know, hey, you're gonna drink a bag every week or 2 weeks or whatever your schedule.
I still have the other one. I don't know. I drink like 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day, so I still have a little bit left in the original bag. But I can't wait to get into Grobert's nuts because they're very tasty.
Allegedly.
So
everybody do definitely check out Moon Does. Remember, it's Moon Does. It's not Starbucks. It's Moon Does because they're not woke and they're not into burnt coffee.
Whoa.
And check them out at moondozartisancoffee.com. And there is a link in the description of all these except for X, because on X, I really don't have a description other than to say, hey, this is what we're doing today.
Okay. Well, that's good.
But I'm really happy to have, again, an independent business supporting us. You know, he's against the man. And
he's going to stick it to the man with his adrenaline coffee. I like that.
Yes, I definitely like that. And it helps me get prepared to deal with you.
Oh,
and
okay.
While we're, talking about the love of World War II figures and other people, a very famous young lady of nowadays, well, she wanted to stand with Palestine.
I know somebody, they try to get away with this octopus in the corner there, but people are too hip. And this may have been the ADL that saw this. The octopus, of course, is a very famous Nazi era, going back to the Soviets, actually, from 1917, with the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. This is the original. I think this is the German version of the octopus.
1938.
It's 38. Okay, so this is German 38 version of the octopus and the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, that there's a secret cabal that meets and they run the world. Okay, these KUNTSs there's another version of it. Yeah. By the way, just so you know how we live. I'm in Palm Beach, right? So I went by the synagogue today. And synagogue here is next door to a church, a couple blocks down, an old church. There's an old synagogue here in Palm Beach, completely being protected by Florida State Police and Palm Beach Police who are outside of it. Now, we should not have to live like this, folks. I appreciate the fact that they're guarding the synagogues all around the country, but this is America. This is not 1938 Germany, but it has the resonance of 1938 Germany. We should not be having police forces and state police forces being forced to guard synagogues around the country because of the threat of Hamas and grand muftis and the mufti that we discussed last week with Barnes. And Barnes knows a lot about the mufti, and so do I. The situation today has amazing echoes to 1938, 1939, 1940, the pre-war years before we got involved. There's many stories we're going to talk about next week regarding this subject, but I'll just tell you the movie that I recommended is Above and Beyond. And it is the story of Americans who helped Israel put together their Air Force. And they didn't have an Air Force and they didn't have a country. So they let alone had an Air Force, but we had all these planes in the Arizona desert nearby where Hunley was raised. And they were post-World War II planes that they weren't using anymore. A lot of them were C-130 type transport planes. And a lot of them, there's photos of fields and fields of B-17s, Eric, that were decommissioned, but still work perfectly. And if you had $5,000, you could buy one of them. This guy bought them and had them retrofitted and used as transport planes. The guy's name was Al Schwimmer. And Al Schwimmer was a hero in Israel. He's an American. And so was a guy named Lou Leonard. And Lou Leonard was a pilot, and Schwimmer was a guy who bought the transport planes. And then they went to overseas to Czechoslovakia. And what was in Czechoslovakia? Decommissioned Messerschmitts, German Messerschmitts. And they trained these pilots on these Messerschmitts, took them apart, and shipped them in these C-130 versions of the C-130 transport plane, took the Messerschmitts apart after they trained a few guys on how to fly these German planes. Some of them were flown from Czechoslovakia to Israel via a couple of stops in German uniforms and German outfits that came with not uniforms, SS uniforms, but German helmets, and they had to use German gear that came with the planes. How ironic that was. Lou Leonard was one of those original pilots who flew missions against the Egyptian army and against the Jordanians before 1948, 49 at that time. And anyway, when they got to Israel, they had to take these Messerschmitts that were unassembled, and they brought them into these hangars, and there they were assembled into the Israeli Air Force. Ironic that it would be German Messerschmitts. And my father was one of the people who put those together. That's why it's an important story for me personally. He was a Makal, what was known as a Makal. Those were Americans who came over and volunteered to work with the Israeli army and create the Israeli Air Force. There was Haagen-Dazs, which were gun runners like my aunt Honey, who had my father and his two brothers had a luncheonette in Brooklyn with a Pepsi Cola giant refrigerated lift the top Pepsi Cola freezer, huge ones on the floor with a door. That was filled with guns in my parents, my father and his two brothers' coffee shop, which was called Three Brothers. It was a luncheonette. This was before my coffee shop story with my uncle on 42nd Street. This was in Brownsville, Brooklyn. So this place had a Pepsi Cola refrigerated freezer filled with rifles. And my Aunt Honey, who was Haagen-Dazs, was the one in charge of getting those rifles in New York. So my father was in World War II when as were his two brothers. So when they came back, he became Makal. Makal meant going over there as a volunteer, as a soldier of fortune. And his skills and his friends' skills were that they had gone to Aviation High in Brooklyn and they'd been involved with aircraft in World War II. My father on the USS Tangier, which was a PBY tender, as people who are World War II veterans know what I'm talking about. In the South Pacific, they took PBYs. Those were the planes with pontoons. They took them out of the ocean and put them on the deck and repaired them and customized them and did stuff. The PBYs were mostly used for scouting and spying and reconnaissance. But they did mount some weapons, my father told me, on the front of the planes to give them some ability to fire. So these guys, when they came back to New York, they went over to Israel as Makal. And one of the things my dad had to do was assemble these Messerschmitts in a hangar in Israel to create or unveil the first Israeli Air Force. So to me, it's personal. I once had an argument with Cher. I know you say, well, how could Grobert have an argument with Cher? Well, I had an argument with Cher, and I explained all this to her. And I said, my brothers were bar mitzvahed at the Western Wall. I told her my father's relationship to Israel. I told her how my mother and my brother went into the gift shop by the Western Wall, and there was a man in a cowboy hat. And my mother said to him, my son's just gotten bar mitzvahed. Do you have any good words for him, my friend? And he said, Mazel tov, good buddy. And that was Johnny Cash, which is a funny family story. And he's in all the photos, the bar mitzvah photos is Johnny Cash in the background. It's kind of funny, but a side story. And, I explained all this stuff to Cher, and I said, that's my connection to Israel. What's your connection to the Palestinians? And she had none. She had no connection.
Talking?
Yes, she stopped talking. And that was the end of our discussion right then and there. She had no connection. And I say that as an allegory to the people who support the Palestinians today. Well, I'm Glenn Greenwald. I support the Palestinians. Why? Because they're anti-democratic, anti-gay, anti-everything. It's a theoretical crock of shit. And I say this to Blumenthal and to Greenwald and to all these other self-hating Jews who would be killed the second they landed in their beloved Hamas, beloved Gaza Strip, beloved open-air concentration camp, and all their other commie horse shit. I mean, these guys are maybe right on a lot of issues, but they're wrong on this one. They're wrong on this one. And in being wrong on this one, you're being wrong on one of the biggest issues in American history since World War II. This is not a minor thing. This is not a kerfuffle. This divides us from the totalitarian regime that is Hamas. And with them, they're allies. Just like the Nazis had allies, these people have allies. These people are the canary in the coal mine of Iran and other theocratic, non-democratic, totalitarian regimes. I know that's hard to swallow for some people, like Greta Thunberg with her octopus doll, Eric. But that's where we are. We have the same pro-Nazi sympathizers like Charles Lindbergh in 1938 who kept visiting with Hitler. We had plenty of them here. We had camps, Nazi camps, summer camps for kids out on Long Island. We had Nazi rallies at Madison Square Garden in New York, for Christ's sakes. People don't know their history. Look back and see the entire amalgam of Nazi support in the United States. And Hitler and Goebbels had people that just worked on that because he had plans for conquering the U.S. after Britain.
All right, I'm going to help Jeffrey McHenry here. Yes, Glenn Greenwald is gay. He was
shocking.
married to a man.
Yes.
Usually when you get married to a man, that implies something.
Well, I mean, the hypocrisies just keep piling up. I mean, the Blumenthal's father was Sidney Blumenthal, who worked for Hillary Clinton, who was a huge supporter of the state of Israel. Let me put it this way. Another way, maybe you can solve it this way. When every political candidate, when every leader as far apart as Ho Chi Minh and the Dalai Lama support the state of Israel, maybe you are on the wrong side of history. Just look at it that way. When Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and RFK, three figures with polar separate opinions of government, three people running for president, and not to mention hundreds and hundreds of other people who are poles apart politically poles apart, support the state of Israel. Maybe you yourself are on the wrong side of history. And I say this to Blumenthal and Glenn Greenwald. Who represents them other than them? Who are their leaders other than Hamas? Who do they turn to other than the leader of Hamas for moral support in this area? They are still yelling and screaming, Blumenthal and Glenn Greenwald, but not as loud as they used to.
True. Let me jump back to some cash, which always makes me happy. Peter Crescito.
He knows. Peter knows.
Yeah, he does.
Nobody knows better than Peter, that's for sure.
And thank you for the super sticker. QED. Hey, Mark, as a scriptwriter and admirer of baseball history, what would you have said to the dramatic possibilities of having Cal Ripken intentionally end his games streak one short of Gehrig's?
This is like something out of fantasy baseball league or something. No, I remember that at the time. It was a theory that would come up, that as he was approaching it, that there was something. I mean, you could say the same thing about Barry Bonds. Maybe he shouldn't have crossed the 714 threshold on steroids of Babe Ruth, but obviously Cal Ripken played the game the right way. It's not an applicable alternative, but there was controversy about Bonds passing him, about McGuire passing him, clearly about Sammy Sosa, I don't speak English, passing him, all of them juiced to the gills, all of them on steroids. I mean, Lou Gehrig was the Iron Man. He obviously died of Lou Gehrig's disease, which is, of course, very ironic that you would die of a disease that has the same name as you. But that's a joke, Holly. But nevertheless, now we're down to joking about Lou Gehrig's disease. That's how low we've reached. But nevertheless, I mean, it's up to Cal Ripken. I mean, he will be an immortal in baseball, Cal Ripken. So I don't know why Cal Ripken would do it. And look, all I want is a playoff series I can watch. I'm just glad Houston and Texas is banging each other around so I can watch something, because my team blows. So anyway, I'm enjoying whatever is left of baseball.
All right, and your joke
this year.
Your joke makes me think of Norm Macdonald when he was talking about cancer. He's saying everybody talks about how cancer wins. He goes, if the person dies, then the cancer dies. I call that a draw.
That's interesting, and it's not contagious. Right. That's a draw. Can I finish up some business from the JFK thing from the other day?
Yeah.
It's something I wanted. It wasn't a Q&A thing, but it's just something I forgot that I wanted to add in about Ruby, which may help
Bill Hunter.
Yeah, Bill Hunter is fine. This Bill Hunter. I'm going to get into this right now because there's been a lot of books. There's been a lot of books, and there was a lot of questions about Tippett. I don't know what was going on there, but that led to Ruby because I believe that Ruby and Crawford were involved in the Tippett murder. And that, of course, Oswald wasn't anywhere near it. And it's the 60th anniversary. So I did want to give a little bit more information to this particular story. Now, if you put that guy back up there, Billy Hunter. Now, Billy Hunter was a crack reporter for the Long Beach Telegram Press out of California. And he was covering the Ruby shooting of Oswald. He was a crack reporter. There was another guy from the Dallas Times Herald, who was his friend, Jim Koeth, Koeth. I don't have a picture of Jim Koeth, right? If you could just throw him up there. Jim Koeth.
Sorry, my system froze.
Okay, so that's Jim Koeth. This is his, ally or friend or co-reporter. Jim Koeth won a lot of awards. And the third guy that I wanted to put up is a guy named Tom Howard. Now, Tom Howard is a very interesting character. This is really in the weeds, people, but that's what you're paying for, and that's why we've got 100,000 subscribers. This is Tom Howard. He'll be Ruby's lawyer on November 24th, after he needs a lawyer to help him with the killing of Oswald. Tom Howard will come up with the defense that Ruby killed Oswald to save Jackie the grief from coming back to Dallas for a trial. This was invented by Tom Howard, the attorney. That's what Ruby was going to say. Tom Howard said, I'm going to put him on the stand Tom Howard said he will get 5 years probation for killing this son of a bitch, Oswald. Tom Howard had a plan, and this was his plan. Tom Howard was in the police station. He was one of these guys who was always in there, and he had a very gregarious style to him. He was a very colorful Texan to anyone who knows Tom Howard or what was going on here. Now, remember these three guys, because there's a lot of books and a lot of articles have been written over the years. Richard Belzer did the 100 people who were killed as witnesses of the JFK incident. There's been plenty of stories about people who have been killed. But I want to get into these three guys for 5 seconds. These three guys went over to the apartment of Jack Ruby, and they were let in by George Senator. George Senator was Ruby's roommate. George Senator, which, if you have a picture of George Senator, maybe the people could follow at home. This is George Senator. He was a homosexual, a flagrant homosexual. He lived with Jack Ruby, who was a homosexual, just like Glenn Greenwald. He lived there for free. He paid no rent. He cooked for Jack Ruby. He was essentially Jack Ruby's wife. I know this is hard to understand, so I will talk slower. They went over, these three guys went over with the permission of George Senator, and they went through Ruby's apartment and searched it for evidence, the two reporters and the attorney for Jack Ruby. And they found various things. And what they found, we don't know. And again, this has nothing to do with Dorothy Kilgallen. These reporters were actually in Ruby's apartment the day of him killing Oswald. Just remember, this is the 24th of November, which is coming up, the 60th anniversary. And Eric and I will be in Dallas. I'm going to talk about this. I'm just giving you a preview here. These three guys went over together and searched the apartment. And what happened to these three guys? You never heard of them again, did you? Well, they disappeared into the fog of history, my friends. Why did they disappear into the fog of history? They found so much stuff in that apartment, phone books, records, stuff of Ruby's. That's why Crawford is brought to testify, Larry Crawford, before the Warren Commission about Ruby's phone book and who's in Ruby's phone book. But there was a lot more stuff that Ruby had there. Okay. In 1964, less than a year later, April 23rd, the first guy, Billy Hunter, in Long Beach, in the police station, is shot to death by Creighton Williams, a policeman who claims he was playing quick draw with him. You can't make this up, Hunley. In the Long Beach police station, two cops shot and killed Billy Hunter in the police station. First, the cop said, Creighton said the gun dropped and went off. And when the grand jury said the angle doesn't line up, he said, I made that up. I was really playing quick draw with my co-policeman who was in, I swear to God, who was in the police station with me. Because, you know, reporters will hang around police stations. So Billy Hunter is shot and killed by Creighton Williams, a Long Beach police officer in the Long Beach police station. And the two cops together got 3 years probation. And Billy Hunter was dead by April 23rd, 1964, less than a year later, April being 6 months after November. So he doesn't testify for the Warren Commission about what he found. Now, what happens to Jim Koth? He was there. He's the Dallas Times Herald. What could possibly have happened to him? Well, you say to yourself, there's Jim Koth in September 21st, 1964, less than a year later. Somebody breaks into his apartment in Dallas and kills him with a karate chop to the throat while he's sleeping. Nothing to look at here, Hunley. So he's dead. And what happens to the third guy, Tom Howard? March 65, mysteriously dies of a heart attack. There's no autopsy, and his body is cremated immediately. A friend brings him to the hospital. The doctors don't even have a chance to examine his body. That's Tom Howard right there. Now, Tom Howard was involved in allowing, just keep this in mind, he was involved with giving the green light to a guy named George Butler. You say, well, who's George Butler? George Butler was on the Dallas police force. He was a friend of Jack Ruby's, and he was the one who allowed Jack Ruby into the Dallas police station that morning. It was George Butler, my friends. And George Butler and Tom Howard were allies together in that police station. People wonder, how did Ruby get in? George Butler gave the signal to let him in. How did George Butler know when to let him in? Tom Howard told him they were moving Oswald right now from his cell. That's how you want to know the physics of this? That's the physics, my friend. November 16th, November 17th, that's when Ruby goes to Vegas to pick up the money, the $50,000, which is the payout for him to do the job. He installs the safe in the Carousel Club, puts the money in the safe, signs his power of attorney over to his attorney, not this attorney, his civil attorney, and then goes to the bank with money coming out of his pockets and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I just wanted to clear this up because there was, a lot of stuff's going around about this and that and the other thing. These are the actual facts. Like somebody was telling me Jackie was suffering from PTSD. None of this is all documented truth at all. These things I just told you are the facts about these three men. And the reason I mention these three men is because people come up with a guy 10 years later crashed his car in a fiery crash. Okay, that's on the cusp. These three are not on the cusp. These three guys were killed within a year of being searching Jack Ruby's apartment. And they were killed for a reason. And I always put these three guys at the top of my list of witnesses, not witnesses. I mean, these were people doing a job, Eric. These are two veteran reporters and an attorney who were dead less than a year after this event happened.
And in weird ways. Mm-hmm. The first two are just nuts. I mean, quick draw and karate chop.
I mean, the excuses are nuts, but the reality of him dying is not nuts because that's how they died. The excuses, might be nuts by the cops, but again, these are just cover-up stories. You know what I mean? When Tom Howard looks at Oswald in the cell, he says to them, the quote was, "That's all I wanted to see." Like Tom Howard said, "I want to see Oswald." This is while he's alive. He's not the attorney for Ruby yet. He says, "I want to see." He goes, "That's all I wanted to see." That's what he says. They bring him to Oswald, doesn't talk to him. Oswald's in the jail cell. Chief Curry is on the phone being stalled by Mayor Cabell. And Curry is trying to get off the phone with Cabell. And Cabell is saying, "When are you moving Oswald?" And Curry's saying, "Well, if you let me off the goddamn phone, I'll move the guy already. And we're going to have this press conference." And Ruby's future lawyer, Tom Howard, signals him at that point. He becomes Ruby's lawyer and then gives this cockamamie excuse on how to get him off. But that's the chain of events leading up to the death of Oswald. And I say this because his birthday was 2 days ago and he would have been 84 years old today. I just want to get that out there, that part of the story. Thanks.
Which, considering the Murettes, they just barely died recently, so he probably would still be alive.
Yeah, I thought about that this morning, about the longevity of the Murettes and how theoretically Oswald could be alive today.
Yeah, pretty good odds, judging
pretty
by the
good
genes.
odds, yeah. And as Jay Hoover said, we can't make this case work. He told LBJ that if he the day after the assassination, he said we don't have enough evidence against Oswald to make this case stick.
Wow. Well, on that line, we have the conference coming up. I haven't heard if there's any tickets left, but they were getting really thin on the ground last episode. They could be sold out. I don't know for physical, but they definitely shouldn't be sold out for virtual, obviously, if people want to check it out. And with the super chat, has that in mind. Who's in charge of the drinking game rules at the conference next month? Would a drink for every magic bullet keep people too sober or too tipsy?
Woo, man! It depends. If you go to Pittsburgh with Paul Landis, the Secret Service agent who claims he found the newest version of 399, you might be drunk by the time you walk in the building. But I don't know how many times you're going to hear Magic Bullet at the Dallas conference because it is considered a joke by most researchers. So, unless it's related to Landis and his hoax, his fraudulent book, and his Robino, his James Robino, his handler, I don't think you're going to get too drunk.
All right. Can you do the Paul Fall thing? I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know. So yeah, okay. Back to this. Judge Napolitano said Israel did not have the right to be formed at all.
Here's a shit what Judge Napolitano says. Thank you, Judge. How could people have any objectivity? It's not a question of objectivity. How do you have objectivity after Pearl Harbor? Should we have gone to the Japanese and said, you know what? That was pretty egregious, bro. I don't want to start a world war over this. Let's have a peace talk. Let's really talk for, and like I said, the Japanese and the Germans were in a race against time to take over the countries and establish totalitarian regimes in those countries. I don't know what Judge Napolitano is talking about, so it doesn't really matter what this guy says.
All right, James Holbrook says, love your show, Grobert for president.
James, I really don't have time. I got to do 2 shows a week with Hunley. How can I run the nation? Be honest, James. Is that possible? Thanks for the super chat.
And Alex Davy Duke agrees.
Oh, $10 ain't buying me a presidency.
No, even worse, there was a guy. It's Canadian. It's not even full to U.S. dollars.
Right. There was a guy who came out again. I forget the guy. I sent you a link to it on Twitter. Or maybe I didn't. But it was a guy supporting RFK, and he gave these lists because the progressive left was attacking him. I guess he was one of the communists. And they said, how can you still support RFK after on Israel because of this? Meaning, that RFK supports Israel. And he said, I'm not a one-issue candidate supporter. I vote based on values, not issues. And he writes this whole long mumbo-jumbo thing that it doesn't matter what his positions are, RFK. It's about his values. And I said, look, I could vote for the Pope if that's all it takes. It doesn't matter what your positions are. So I simply said that you're for $32 trillion in reparations to African Americans, which is what RFK came out with this week. He's for reparations for African Americans. And he's got his CIA. Oh, and also that the guy said that RFK would reform the CIA. And I said, well, with his daughter-in-law as his campaign manager from the CIA, that's a chicken in the hen house. I mean, it's a fox in the hen house. And her name is Fox. So I say that as a pseudo pun. However, these are people on the left. And I simply said that this is a spoiler candidacy being run for ego by a privileged white male who never worked a day in his life, who wants to just, there's the fox in the hen. This is great. Maybe Eric can explain this a little bit, or I'll explain it. I don't really care.
The CIA posted this the same day that her book deal was announced that she supposedly didn't have clearance for, which is very interesting that they happened to just come across this thing and say, hey, what does a fox say? Ours doesn't talk. When you're a CIA fox, you're part of the silent service.
Right. Now, the importance, I don't know if you could, well, I did say something below that, I guess. But the date of this, which is 2019, Eric?
September 3rd.
Right. Okay. The reason I went back and got this out of my archives is September 3rd, 2019. My friends were with her at dinner when she got the notice of her book deal, and she was screaming and yelling at the publisher because it hadn't been announced yet. And she was getting into a fight with them over the phone at dinner in Hollywood. Had some sources who were there that night. And she was not happy about whatever this conversation was about. And it might not have been the publisher is what I was getting at. It may have been someone else who was demanding her allegiance to the agency. And there was no clearance on her book. And at least there was no public clearance on her book. And as I was explaining to Eric last week, the CIA has to clear every book because if they skip one, they lose the precedent in court for the next one. So they have in the past seized the profits and assets of books by former CIA operatives with court rulings in their favor, because you sign a document saying you can't publish a book without clearance. Now, either her book was cleared or it wasn't cleared. Publicly, we don't know now, which puts the CIA in grave judicial danger for themselves of allowing others to simply publish books. Now, she claims she deleted this or that, whatever. The CIA has allowed books to come out with massive blackouts throughout the books.
I had an author on, and as an answer to that, that's why I know a lot about this. She deliberately said, name redacted, name redacted. And she left that in. So she would talk about, I went to country redacted and talk to name redacted.
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
It did that
Yeah, yeah.
deliberately to show how madly they did it. She didn't change names. She just kept doing that over and over and over.
Well, the reality of it is either they cleared the book or they didn't clear the book. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that she's now running a presidential campaign with no experience, I presume he offered her the directorship of the CIA if he wins the presidency. I think that's what he wants out of this woman. And she is obviously his daughter-in-law. She's obviously a veteran CIA operative. The fact that she is running a presidential campaign publicly announced after the firing of veteran Democratic politician Dennis Kucinich, who has a lot of friends in Washington, who knows a lot of people, knows how to run a campaign. Dennis Kucinich was fired, the congressman, former congressman
he didn't
from
quit?
Ohio.
I didn't know. I thought.
No, bro. Dude, nobody quits a presidential campaign unless there's a major scandal, okay?
Mm-hmm.
He was shit-canned and replaced by her. Now, in a gaslighting attempt, they said that this is a week later, she was the co-manager of the campaign from the beginning. No record of that. No record of that exists. No record of that exists. Some people say that she has denounced the CIA. No record of that exists. She has talked differently about certain tactics of the CIA that she'd like to see a different style or whatever it is. She's never denounced the Central Intelligence Agency. And as far as I know, is still employed by the Central Intelligence Agency. At least the amount of stuff that I've seen that she has online, we're going to get into it because I want to do a whole show on her. So I don't want to get into this anymore. We're going to do an episode just on her. So let's move on.
All right, cool. Speaking of that, we've been going back and forth with the whole Speaker of the House thing. And it appears that Jim Jordan now is officially out. It was very confusing because he ran, he lost, he ran, he lost. Then he said, I'm dropping out. And then he said, I'm not dropping out after all. And I'm doing it.
Well, that's because it's in flux, Eric. I mean, you know what happened. It's in flux. You don't know if you have the votes from 1 minute to the next. But
well, sure. I mean, but he didn't hang in there. Anyway.
It's not a question of hanging in there. It's just a question of you don't have the votes.
Okay. Well, anyway, apparently 22 of the holdouts, 13 of them were connected to FTX and voter mule donations.
Well, I mean, that's a spot thing. I'm sure they're connected to a lot more evil than just that. You know, I don't think that's the reason. There's more reasons than that. The rhino thing is the big reason, I think, other than these specific little reasons. But look, what's the litmus test to be Speaker of the House then? Can you be anti-Ukraine war? Can you be anti-Hamas? Can you be anti-big tech? I mean, could you be pro-big tech? I mean, there's so many litmus tests. How do you come up with somebody? I thought Jordan was a perfect candidate simply because he wasn't, Matt Gaetz. I think Matt Gaetz would be a perfect candidate, but he's Matt Gaetz, so apparently that's no good. Again, there's only 8 MAGAs in there.
Yeah, there's not that many, but I feel like Jordan, I mean, I feel like it's factioning. There's enough of them that are so pissed off at Jordan and Matt Gaetz, no matter what, because Matt Gaetz
is not pissed off. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, these factions do count when it's like, okay,
no, but I'm saying
allegiance to McCarthy and your McCarthy's group, and you're upset with these people. You're like, no way in hell. I mean, you had somebody who voted and wrote in freaking McCarthy just because of that. Somebody else who said, I'm voting.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, but somebody who said, I'm voting for, and he named a congressman, and they said, oh, you like that congressman? He said, no, I hate him. Can't stand him. I never wanted to be Speaker. Then why'd you vote for him? I won't vote for Jim Jordan. I mean, it's just there's personalities.
These are political reasons. I don't think they're personal reasons. To say they're pissed off would humanize them, and I can't humanize them. I don't think there's a human instinct in their bones. These are savage animals. All I'm saying is pissed off would humanize them, Eric, and make it more personal and more emotional. I don't think it's emotional. I think it's business and it's hardcore and it's money and it's, that kind of situation. That's why they're going to block Jim Jordan. Who they end up with, there's a guy who's running for president who said he would do it temporarily. How about that guy?
I honestly don't know that he'd get the votes.
Okay.
I'm serious. I mean, I don't know that he would. At the rate it is going in there, God only knows.
Now, what
it's a
about
shit
this
show.
story about the judge that wants to put him in jail? What about that story?
Oh, let me track it down. Jeez.
The judge
Yeah.
said today he's gonna jail him because he didn't remove some cockamamie thing of somebody else on his social media account. I don't know if this is the full story. There's one where he said he's going to put him in jail.
Well, this is the link that you sent me earlier. So
okay, well, blow that up because it might be a statement by the guy here, this maniac judge who's basically a
threatened to jail him for future breaches. So
yeah. I'm going to slap the ex-commander in chief with a penalty. He barred him 17 days after the court order barred Trump from publicly criticizing his staff. Already found Trump. Yeah, the judge who has already found Trump liable for fraud, for making false claims. Okay. I thought there was more details about what he was supposed to take down. There was the details about some sort of a screenshot of the actual thing he was reluctant or didn't take down. I mean, it's just insane. It's just insane.
Oh, you have to.
Oh, wait.
Here's the post. Only 3701 out of 114 visitors to his website saw this page with a screenshot. I don't know what the screenshot was.
Right. The point of the matter is, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. The point of the matter is that the judge is so into the weeds where he's now looking at other people's posts on Trump's website to jail him. They're going to jail him. You know, and what Trump said the day after I came out with this thing, not that he was listening to me, was I think he should just go to jail and just blow it to sky high and say, take me now. Because they are going to do these picayune things until they say, all right, he's got to go to jail. We warned him 5 times over these little things. And Trump said, I'm willing and ready to go to jail. And I don't think he was making that up. I think he is willing and ready to go to jail. And I think it would help him to actually blow this thing sky high, say whatever he wants about this freaking judge, anything he wants about the people in the courtroom. As Barnes said, there's no legal reason to not say anything you want about people in the courtroom. There's no jury there. There's no tampering with a jury. There's no influencing an opinion. There's no secret gag order on some secret Rosenberg case. This is a petulant civil court traffic judge, for Christ's sakes, who has been selected to do their bidding of finding Trump in violation of a petulant gag order of meaningless proportions to put him in jail. The longer it goes, the worse it gets for Trump. Get it over with now. Blow this thing to smithereens right now. Surrender, blow it up, and say, put me in jail, fuckface. Let's get it on. And I think that's Trump's attitude right now. Because the longer, what they want to do is drag this out and then put him in jail. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is put him in jail now. Just get it over with. Call their bluff. Say machine gun style of slurs against the judge, his wife, his mother, every freaking thing you can come up with, and say either call his bluff and say, put me in jail, fuckface, or get off my back. Make them put you in jail now. Not 9 months from now, bro. Now. Go to jail now. Make it a national disgrace now, not a day before the election.
So it's Chicago 7, essentially.
Exactly. Go full Chicago 7 on their ass.
Well, and the fun part is if this guy actually does do it, the Secret Service will take over the jail.
Absolutely.
And what are you going to do? Move out all the other convicts, move them elsewhere. And
bring the havoc on now. That's exactly correct, Eric. It's going to be sheer havoc. That's what you have to do. Don't do these picayune things where you're cleaning up your website on a Monday because this guy found something. They're laughing, going, look, we made him take that thing off the website. What else could you find, Bobby? So they got a bunch of schmucks going through his website saying, you know what? This is offensive. Let's go on this one now. Make him remove this. They're going to make him dance around like a chicken and then eventually put him in jail. I'm saying grab the bull by the horns, scream it from the rafters, and call their bluff now. And I think Trump may do that. I think he may do that.
I hope he does, and I hope he leaves it up too.
Yeah, I hope he leaves it up. Says, bring it on. Just bring it on, bro. Let's go. Either you have free speech or you don't. Either you have election interference or you don't. Either this guy can run. You know, there are some other people the other day saying he's going to be taken off the ballot in multiple states.
They're trying. Sure.
One of them in Colorado. There's a judicial moves, not legislative moves. Only a legislature can remove you from a ballot, and they'd have to have, you know, a legislative process, put it that way, voting and blah, blah, blah. A judge doing it willy-nilly is clearly unconstitutional, but these sources say they're going to do it anyway. Okay, great. Let's say they remove him from the ballot in California. Okay, so you have you go to vote, and there's no one second.
Right.
You go to vote, there's no candidate on the Republican ballot. You go to vote in Colorado, there's no candidate on the Republican ballot. You go to New Mexico, and there's no candidate for the Republican ballot. Now you've got 10 million voters who are Republican registered voters in California who have no candidate to vote. You have 1 million or 2 million in Colorado. You've got a couple 100,000 in New Mexico, don't have a candidate. What you have at that point is a de facto civil war. That's what you have. There is no coming back from that. You have a de facto civil war in the United States of America with voting equaling slavery as the biggest issue of our era. Denying him access, or anybody of that nominee of the party, which is what he's going to be, is an act of civil war, not civil disobedience, not protest, not an anti-war protest. This is an act of civil war. Nobody can vote for the only thing the conservatives live for, and I've said this before, half mockingly, is they pray, they pay taxes, and they vote. That's their troika. That's what they live by. They don't go out in the streets. They don't do protests. They don't do anything else. They have three things. COVID denied them of one. Taxes, the money's now going to Ukraine, the revenue from the taxes. Number three is the voting. If they take away all three, you now have civil war in this country. And that's maybe what they want, Eric. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was also going to say, I mean, obviously that's the word, you know, that's a horrible thing to happen. But like California, him being taken off the ballot, it's kind of a non-factor because there's no way he'd get the electoral votes in California.
It's not a non-factor. It's not a non-factor. It's an electoral vote non-factor. But that's not what I'm talking about.
I hear what you're talking about.
I'm talking about denying 10 million American citizens the right to vote. Not that he couldn't win. He might win. You don't know that. You don't know that. I mean, obviously, it's a stretch, you know, to win a state. But that's not illegal. That's not a legal ruling. Saying we took you off the ballot, you can't win. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The fact is that I don't think he'd win. And it actually would be.
I don't think so either. But
I think it would be beneficial to him in some ways because it does just what you said. It disenfranchises half, not quite half of the electorate, which blows up in their face. And he probably wouldn't pick that up anyway. So it has a side effect to it. The bigger concerns are when they do it in Pennsylvania, when they do it in other places. So I'm not just
again. I'm not going to go state by state to dice up why the Republican nominee is not on the ballot. That's insane. That's insane. I'm not going to go state by state pragmatically. The act itself is an act of civil war. That's what I'm saying. It's a much bigger picture than go. I agree with you statistically and pragmatically. Those are the numbers, but that's not the big picture. The big picture is you're removing the Republican nominee in a two-party system from being on the ballot. That's the only story that matters. You could say, well, we're removing him because of this, that, and the other. It's never been done. That's civil war at that point. It's civil war.
What I worry about is if they get it before the nomination, they say, hey, well, we got DeSantis. He's a Republican nominee, which could potentially happen. So don't, you know.
It's highly doubtful that they're going to nominate DeSantis at this point with 11% of the vote. That being said, I believe blue states will do this. And I believe this is beyond the Supreme Court ruling. How do you fundraise in a state, Eric, millions and millions of dollars in fundraising when you're not on the ballot? Explain that to me.
I have no idea.
Right. Because you have no idea, because nobody's going to do it.
Actually, you can. I mean, Ocasio-Cortez freaking generates more money from the whole country, and it's not even interstate. So technically speaking, it can be done, it is done. It would obviously harm him greatly. I'm not saying that, but yes, you can technically do that, and it is done sometimes.
Okay.
So
what if he's banned from the state?
I don't know. I mean,
where does it end? Where does it end, bro? Where does it end?
What could be ending in the Supreme Court, which they're trying to pack right now.
All right. Well,
I know Nate's doing a video on that they're coming up with a new scheme to set term limits on the Supreme Court of coincidentally 18 years, which would knock out Clarence Thomas, Sam Alito, and
make it 17. Make sure. Make it 17 just to be on the safe side.
Exactly. And then they're going to run it up to 18 justices. It's a crazy mix. So
it's gonna. All I'm saying is the spark that is going to ignite the second Civil War is the banning of this presidential candidate from state ballots. That's all I'm putting out there. You could do what you want with it. I'm telling you right now, this is slavery as an issue. This is abolition. Not that they're morally the same, schmuck. I'm not talking about that, you autistic nitwits out there. I'm saying the enormity of this issue as a nation is similar to what led to the first Civil War, the enormity of it.
It'll be ugly. But to cheer me up, money. No. Lisa Stiles here. Neither Hitler or the Nazis ever won a majority of the vote or held a majority in the Reichstag, which makes the rise even scarier.
Not needed in a parliamentary government. It's such a bullshit old story. You don't need a majority to run you get other parties to join you and you have the vote. It's done every single year in multiple parliamentary. It's done everywhere at parliamentary democracies. How is this guy Trudeau empowering Canada, Eric?
Yes, that's what I just said.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, I know, but it is still scary because we believe in a majority government, and it is
right. But they don't have majority style rule. And it's a red herring. People cite that all the time. It's meaningless in a parliamentary democracy. That was a parliamentary democracy, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm. Brian C. saying China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, the new Axis powers. Yeah, that sounds
maybe
like
not. Maybe not at all. I mean, it may be that. This guy they've tied Russia down with this meat grinder war. China is staying out of this thing to make money economically from their own country. And you may just see an Iranian Muslim, not that the Iranians are Muslims or are Arab, but Iranian Muslims and like-minded countries in a war against Israel. And if that happens, then like the attack on Poland in 1939, both the British and the French did not come to their aid. Why? Because neither one was ready to do battle with the Nazi war machine at the time. It still meant they had a military treaty to defend Poland. They didn't do it. They didn't honor it. Okay, they did honor it eventually and destroyed the Nazis. It didn't happen in 2 weeks. And we're in a similar situation right now. An attack on Israel by these other nations may lead to democracies getting their shit together and going after them. Just putting that out there. Ukraine not being one of them.
No, but notice Biden's going for the bundling.
Yeah.
So, no, that was one of the only things that I was like, oh, I haven't heard Ukraine lately. Never mind.
Well, the linkage is just preposterously insane. The fact that you'd link the Nazis to Israel in the Ukraine is just absolutely crazy. I mean, unless, Zelensky becomes the overlord or something.
Wow. Okay. So Thurston Howell III. Mark, what do you suppose Sir Larry David has to say on this matter?
He's an idiot. This guy's he's a low intelligence idiot. Brilliant comedy writer, but that doesn't mean Again, who gives a shit what any celebrity says about this stuff? I mean, really, who gives a shit what they say? There was 3,000 conservative, I assume conservative, celebrities, including Jerry Seinfeld and a lot of others, Sabin and others, who signed a letter endorsing and denouncing Hamas and endorsing the state of Israel. That letter is signed by almost 3,000 Hollywood celebrities. Gil Gadot, the Israeli actress who played Wonder Woman, many celebrities on that list. Okay. These people are endorsing the state of Israel and denouncing Hamas, and they're in Hollywood. There's also an equal amount, which is why this issue is so divisively important, of celebrities who denounce the state of Israel and are supporting Hamas. So it's on both sides of even freaking Hollywood. That's how divisive this is and how important it is. How important it is. This is so rare to have this split that it needs to be exploited, folks. It needs to be exploited.
Yeah, it's almost a reshuffling.
Right. It can be. That's why I'm calling for the cancellation of cancel culture by canceling them. No, I'm serious, because some of them are getting canceled. And I believe that if enough celebrities get canceled, this thing will end. Watch how quickly it ends. When it's kind of like the Me Too thing. They got Cuomo out of New York. Remember, the last guy to be Me Too'd was Cuomo, and people were like shocked. They took down a governor of New York State. The next guy to be Me Too'd was Joe Biden, and that's where it ended. When the woman came out and said he fingered me in the hallway, he is a predator. That's what ended Me Too. Not that he was running for president, was that they went after a celebrity that they needed for their bidding. Cuomo was done in by them for political hatchet reasons. But Me Too ostensibly ended when they went after Joe Biden. That's when they Believe All Women ended, Eric, if you remember.
Yeah, because it becomes Believe Most Women.
Right.
Bob Bennett with $100. Congrats on making 100,000 subs. Great show as always. And
Bob,
thank you, Bob. Thank you very much. And actually, on that note, we had a Rumble rant that I saw coming in earlier from, several Rumble rants snuck in here. A Walfer, Alan, who we met in Montgomery, sent $50 saying happy birthday. And I'm Not Your Buddy Guy says their boos mean nothing to me because I've seen what makes them cheer.
It's a good line.
Entry required said wrap the UN Secretariat building in plastic, knock it into the East River, float it across the Atlantic around the Horn of Africa, and set it up in Gaza.
Well, I just want to interject. Where is the United Nations now that Canada has called for the suicide?
Yeah, not that word.
What word do I say now?
Seppuku, the unaliving, the self-deletion.
No. I'm talking about euthanasia.
Okay.
Euthanasia. Is it? Okay. They've now legalized euthanasia of drug addicts in Canada. But I'm saying, where is the United Nations? If this was Ghana, and they came up with some cockamamie Ghanaian thing to euthanize, pregnant women or something, the United Nations would be all over it. Where is the UN, or where are the Western democracies denouncing this insane policy? And I'm speaking to you, Viva, who I'm going to be on a fishing boat with tomorrow, so I'll get it from Viva, from the horse's mouth. So I take that back. I'll talk to Viva about this tomorrow.
All right. All right. Entry required said I'm now on Rumble because we're orphans on locals. Okay.
What does that mean?
We're going to be giving locals their own special attention. So I'm not sure what you're saying entry required, because like on Tuesday, we cut over and did exclusive local coverage, and we may be doing that today. I don't know, because there's so many super chats and everything in here. It's very difficult to.
Well, we have to go long. We could go long today. I was going to go shopping for some pants. None of my pants fit anymore.
The hardship.
Yeah, don't fly anywhere. That's all I can tell you. It's a shit show up there, folks. Just for people who fly a lot, you know what I'm talking about. I didn't even tell you what happened, Hunley.
No, but you can.
Okay, I'll tell you this. I went to the airlines at LAX, got on a plane, which worked. The plane left what's called late, although they were trying to say it wasn't late. So the plane left a little late from LAX, got to Dallas, Fort Worth, where you had literally 17 minutes to cover 2 terminals on foot as O.J. Simpson running for the Hertz commercial. And by the time you got there, that plane was boarding. And for some reason, I got there, and with my travel companion, we were out of breath, almost dead. It was unbelievable the amount of space that I covered. And I had to really go back in my mind. I became like a high school athlete again, running. We didn't have any bags because we checked the bags. So we're kind of running, I had a backpack, and it was, and other people were running too. So the crowd was cheering, go, 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 all through from Terminal B. And people who know Dallas Airport know how far this is. Terminal B to Terminal D is like 2.5 miles. So you have no choice. The stewardess encouraged me. She said, go for it. You can make it. It might be delayed. And I said, you know what? She's right. This was delayed. Maybe I can make it. So this is the connecting flight from Dallas to West Palm Beach, right? So we get there, and indeed, it's delayed. I said, oh my God, I made it. Thank the Lord Jesus Christ, my Savior. So we get on the plane, and it's supposed to take off at 6:30, sits on the ground, doesn't take off. Why? Your pilot comes on and says, we're missing a part on the plane. They have a skeleton maintenance crew here. We're going to wait and see if they can deliver the part to the plane. If not, we'll just get another plane. And I'm going like, I could have had dinner already. So we're on the tarmac for 2 hours. He gets the part, and now he's got to taxi around with us on the plane to see if it stops the oil leak from the engine. I swear to God. So he starts driving us around the airport in an Airbus, the plane, to see if it'll work. If not, he's going to take the plane out of commission and give us another plane. So apparently it works. Now, there's no food, there's no drink. People are starting to resort to cannibalism in rows 22 to 29. I don't know what was going on back there. They had their own cult. The cults were starting to spring up on the flight itself. First class somehow got armed. They were stopping the people in coach from getting into first class. That's another story for another day. The point is, he taxied around the runway, and he said, okay, we got good news. The oil leak is fixed, and we're ready to take off. The bad news is we were here so long that Palm Beach Airport is now closed. So we're now going to fly you to another city called Fort Lauderdale. And if you don't want to go, now's the time to get off the plane. So a stampede of people start storming off the plane because they don't particularly want to go to Fort Lauderdale. They want to go to the place that they paid for to go to, which was Palm Beach. Okay. I don't care. I go to Fort Lauderdale, right? You land at Fort Lauderdale. There's nobody there. They're going to put you on a bus now to go to an empty airport at Palm Beach, which is closed. So I just Ubered to where I had to go, and that was the end of the story for me. Didn't get a rental car, had an Uber right here, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying, this is just one average American traveling to a city, from one city to another. And when you're on board with these people, and I started interviewing people, at one point I was talking to the pilot, I interviewed the stewardesses. Apparently this is happening all the time, is the point of this whole joke. And a lot of it is because they've laid off the maintenance teams. They've laid off air traffic controllers. A lot of it is now the ethnic hiring policies of the Biden administration, the firing of pilots over COVID. These are multi problem situations that have developed, literally almost bringing the air traffic system to its knees, the commercial air system to its knees. They are barely functioning. And everyone who knows, when I was talking to people on the plane, businessmen in particular who fly even more, their horror stories were breathtaking. This is an ongoing problem. There's nothing in the news about it. It's all word of mouth. The stewardesses told me how, and I've been flying a lot lately, so I've been talking to a lot of people. At one point, I was sitting next to the pilot in the co-pilot seat. He let me fly the plane for 5 minutes, which was really nice of him because I didn't even have a freaking license. He said, either do I. So I got out and I let the co-pilot come back in. He was taking a leak. But the point of the matter is, this is where we are, people. This is where these hiring policies and these other crazy policies have single-handedly handcuffed an entire industry of transportation for the American public. This thing is a shit show out there, and people who travel a lot know what I'm talking about. That's all I wanted to say. Go on, Eric.
Awesome. Entry required is going to try to convince his wife to go online and do the JFK stuff. Thank you.
How much convincing do you need to go? I mean,
I don't know.
To watch? You mean to buy the virtual ticket?
I'm not sure. I Care 22. Love you both. Here's a lowly full Canadian dollar tip. It's required. Mark, if you become POTUS, I want you to put me as head of the National Science Foundation so I could cancel junk science. So we are funding.
That's funny. That's a funny one. Well, you could, at least you won't be working with RFK's daughter-in-law as the head of the CIA.
Not true. True. Tommy Jekyll saying, Eric and Mark, now that you have 100,000 subs on YouTube, does that increase your ability to have topic experts into your platforms for interviews?
You know what? That's not the style of this show. I mean, the style of the show is to have our friends on like Barris and Viva and Barnes, and that's about it. We consider them family and part of the group that we're affiliated with. I mean, they have a sidebar thing on with Barnes and Viva. Look how many sidebars they regret having now, Eric. Look at what's his name, Jordan Hinkle, and all these different mutts that they've had on there that they regret even having had on now. I don't want to be in that category, nor do I want to be in the position to have to vet every single guest and then regret it, later, Eric,
But there are a couple of names that, maybe, if they're available, we'll definitely have them. But
look, we haven't seen RFK on here, have we?
Well, he had the invite. Anyway, no sniper in the nest. Do you two have plans to do a walking tour of Dealey Plaza?
Yeah, but not with you. Not with you.
Not with any
no. Eric suggested this, and I just don't want to walk around Dealey Plaza with 32 people following me.
They're a little touchy there.
It's a little much. It's a little much.
Well, they might be questioning us and start. Who are you? Do you have a license?
It's just not physically possible. It's not like a Greyhound tour of celebrity homes in Hollywood. You know what I mean? On the right is Greta Garbo's house. You can't really physically pull that off there. But I think Eric and it's so funny. Somebody asked us to interview the guy who lives in the house, Jose, by the Tippit murder site. And I said, what?
Your video with him is hilarious.
No, but somebody said in the comment section this week that we should interview this guy who lives in the house next to the Tippit murder. I said, great idea. I'm going to get on that right away. But yeah, I love that interview. I
think you covered it. It can't be improved upon. It's done. It's a perfect shot in history.
I think you and I could go around where we went the last time in Dealey Plaza, right?
Oh, we are.
Right. Okay.
We're definitely going to.
Right.
We just have to figure out our timing on doing it. Let me see. Michael Atherton, Marcus spitting mad truths, as the young folks say.
What is mad truths?
Facts.
We had a Nazi club in South. Absolutely. Thank you. People don't realize this is the equivalent. It was the Nazi equivalent of the infiltration of Hamas lovers and their ilk today. They are a Nazi regime, a miniature Nazi regime in this region of the world. And they have infiltrated, like the Nazis did, with editors and speechwriters and clubs and camps. You got to look at your history, people.
True. Pasha, preach it, Mark. There's nothing better than informed passion.
Look, I just feel the way I feel based on what I know. Have I been wrong in my life? Absolutely. Have I been wrong in the future? Absolutely. These are my opinions based on what I think I know now and what I've learned over the years based on history repeating itself and looking back. These things, there's a reason we don't get taught history, people, because it empowers the people who know history. The reason you don't know history is because they do. That's why you don't. And that's why 100,000 people have subscribed to this channel, in my humble opinion, because I'm not a professor of history. I don't have anything like that. I mean, I've done some things in my life, but the point of the matter is I'm not an expert in these areas. I've read a ton of shit and I'm able to translate it so people can enjoy it with a bit of humor to get it across to you. But I hope I'm never an expert with quotation marks around me, because that's a killer. The reality of it is there are truths. If you look into history, you will find the meaning of events today. And that's a general statement about what's going on today. But that's generally what Eric and I have tried to do with this channel. I'm not just doing stories for the sake of doing stories. I did the story on Henry Ford because I wanted people to know how all these Palestinians ended up in freaking Dearborn, Michigan, and how the protocols of the elders of Zion ended up in every glove compartment of a Model T Ford. I mean, I think that's important for the Americans to know that this anti-Semitic millionaire own the Dearborn newspaper that published the protocols of the elders of Zion every week.
True. We've come a long way from anti-meme.
The Broadway play?
I guess. I'm not
Okay.
sure. Jay Kurtz. What to 2x or 3x your subscribers? Multiple part series. The Women of Mark Gruber.
I'm sure there may be some do not disclose documents. I don't know.
Fact, or if you live long enough, you'll eventually die of some form of cancer. Fact.
Well, if you get hit by a car.
Well, there's a lot of truth to that because they've talked about how, cancer numbers have gone up, but they've also correlated very much with people living longer. And a lot of it is people didn't live long enough to get cancer a long time ago.
Well, also they do treat cancer. I mean, skin cancer used to be a problem. Now it's not. Prostate cancer used to be a problem. Now it's not. I'm talking about big problems. I mean, these things are the early detection devices for some cancers have saved millions and millions of lives. Does cancer still exist? Absolutely. But the reality of it is some cancers are easily detected now and easily treatable.
Sure.
I mean, I don't like having a colonoscopy. Who does? You think it's fun for me? It's not fun for me to have a colonoscopy, but I do it. You know why? Because there might be polyps up there. And that guy goes up with a laser and he told me last time there were 2 polyps. And I go, big deal. 2 polyps. It really is nothing. They just laser the thing and you go on with your life and that's it. I mean, but there are people who do die of colon cancer to this day, which is really crazy because it's so easily treatable and detectable. Let me put it that way.
No, it depends. I mean, most of these people, they get it young, and by the time they see it, it's very late.
Right. Well, those are different cancers than the 2 I'm mentioning, though.
Right. Well, yeah. Do you think Prayer Man could have been Oswald?
I think Prayer Man could have been Oswald. No, I don't know who Prayer Man is, first of all. And I don't think it's real. I think Oswald was real. I think he ate lunch where he said he ate lunch. I think he went and got a soda where he said he got a soda. I think there's witnesses to that. There's people who changed. There's a person who changed his dollar bill into 4 quarters to let him get a Coca-Cola. There's people who saw him drinking a Coca-Cola. I don't know what to say. I mean, we go over this 100 times. Is he Billy Lovelady on the front stairs of the school book depository? No, that's Billy Lovelady. Sometimes it's Occam's razor, people.
All right. John S. coming in from England. Congrats to you both on 100K subs. Best wishes from one of your fat bastards in the UK. My wife and I want to fly to the US for a break. I love history and good food. Where would you suggest we visit that is non-woke and safe-ish?
Whew. I mean, I guess Barnes would say Chattanooga, Tennessee. But I can't vouch for the safety of any of these cities. So the only thing I could say is, I mean, Florida is kind of safe, right, Eric? I mean,
I think in fairness, if you visit most places in a really touristy area, you're going to be fine. You
could say Times Square. I mean, Times Square is a real.
Well, that's what
Times Square is not safe. LA is not safe. Well, these places are not safe. I can tell you firsthand, bro. They're not safe.
Yeah, well,
there's tons of homeless people with butcher knives. Is that your definition of safe? I mean, what Barnes is saying, like, if you want to see a nice, he might be right. I mean, Chattanooga might be a nice place to go. Memphis has an enormously high crime rate. I couldn't send someone to Memphis in good faith. New Orleans, off the charts, bro, in murder. New Orleans. I can't send someone to New Orleans. And people have asked me this recently. I wouldn't go there. Okay. I mean, there are places where I just wouldn't go anymore. So it's a hard question. I'll be honest with you.
And then there's other places. I think Austin, is relatively safe, but it's very woke.
It's both unsafe, filled with homeless to the brim, and woke. I mean, it's the troika.
Go to the Midwest. Go to Kansas. Go to Topeka. I just say go to a lot of the red states and stay out of the big cities, and you're all right. Good. Should be pretty good.
All right, Holly.
That's true.
We'll never hear from them again, so that might be.
Well, Miami is relative, but even that you could go to one city.
I'll tell you a funny story. I
areas
was
or bad areas.
living in Hell's Kitchen one time with my girlfriend, and she had a couple of artists visit us from Amsterdam, and we were walking on the street with them on 9th Avenue all the time. They stayed with us for about a week or something, and every couple of feet, they would literally cross the avenue in traffic. And we're walking with them. We're going, what the frick is going on here? Zigzagging back and forth across 9th Avenue, Eric, and side streets. And we're following them. They're walking around New York. And they're crossing left and right, left and right, left and right. Finally, we said, hey, Dutch people, what's the deal with the street crossing? And they said to us, they were told by people in Amsterdam, if they saw a black person, to simply cross the street. They were doing this in Manhattan. And we were just going, oh, my God, we're never going to get to where we're going. This is ridiculous every day. But that's what they were told to stay safe.
Well, I can't help that bit. Let me see. T. Logan, if Ruby is paid on the 17th, is it possible he didn't even know what his assignment would be? Seems like he actually didn't want to do it.
He didn't want to do it. And he didn't want to do it because he knew what his assignment was. He called up Friday night and Saturday night, maybe Thursday night. Friday night, Thursday night, he didn't have it done yet, but Friday night and Saturday night and Sunday morning, I think there were 3 calls, one to 3 different law enforcement agencies threatening that saying there was going to be a threat on the life of Lee Harvey Oswald. And it was him. The third guy was the desk sergeant or a patrolman who was on staff at the Dallas police station on Sunday. He got a call from Jack Ruby, and the kid, he was a young kid, and said, "Is this Jack Ruby?" And he hung up. Jack Ruby. No, he didn't want to do it. And I think he might have gotten a call from, some people suggest David Ferry called him from an airport, Redbird Airport, to remind him that he took the money and he's got to do it. And Sunday, reluctantly, he took about 20 spanules of Dexedrine to give himself some strength and energy. He was addicted to Dexedrine. Left his dachshunds in the car and went over to Western Union, which was a cover story, to wire this dancer some money. And then he was led into the Dallas police station, where he did what he did, high as a kite on Dexedrine. He was completely disoriented after the shooting. People were saying for MK Ultra reasons, whatever. It was because he was so freaking high from the Dexedrine that he was addicted to. A lot of gays back then were addicted to speed. That was their drug of choice, and he was one of them.
All right. John B., any possibility of Sirhan being paroled by now? Probably not.
Well, he was technically paroled. I mean, it was reversed. When I was there with RFK Jr., the ruling was that he was paroled. It was reversed by Newsom, who had never reversed his own parole board recommendations. Obviously, it had no legal gravitas, what we had gotten from the parole board. But they told us at the parole hearing that, and they voted right in front of us, both of them voted right at the parole hearing to parole him. So what Newsom did was he listened to Kerry Kennedy and the other sister and said he was a fan of the Kennedys. And she said that Sirhan could drive to Malibu or Uber from Malibu to Malibu from Pasadena and kill her, which I thought was a stretch. But apparently that won the day with Newsom, and he is still in prison. I don't think anything short of a change of administration of Newsom would get him out of jail. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, it doesn't look likely. Hello, any truth to Carl Elmer Jenkins being linked to the shooters on Dealey Plaza?
Never heard of his name.
Okay. David Wells, thoughts on Sidney Powell?
She had to make a deal. I mean, they parade these things around when you're faced with going to trial, like she was, and the trial threat is 20 years to life or some cockamamie thing, or plead to a misdemeanor. I think she pled down, and she's, I don't think she's going to flip. I don't think she's going to do anything. I think she's trying to save her own ass in a totalitarian court system that is gone berserk. It's gone berserk. I mean, what are her crimes? What are her crimes? That she said something? She said there was a conspiracy or a plot? Big fucking deal. Who gives a shit what she said? You got to go to jail for that?
Yeah, if you're on the wrong side. Pamela Clifton, happy birthday to America's Untold Stories.
I don't
Thank
want
you
to say
very
anything,
much.
but I think we're both frozen.
You're frozen on my end. I seem to be still going here.
Boy, it's just a shit show of problems out here, isn't it?
Apparently. I don't know. Chat, tell us if we're frozen. If not, let me know, because things are popping up from my screen. But you are definitely frozen.
Mm-hmm.
Mark froze. LOL. Yeah, there we go. Let me see here. Let me try to get non-Mark questions. Don't know what is going on here. Pasha, you went to Chattanooga 1 year ago and you loved it. Awesome. Awesome to hear that. Let's see. Yeah, Carl Burkhalter, this is true. Lincoln offered to make slavery permanent. There's a lot with Lincoln that's very hard, because Lincoln said if he could keep the country together and keep slavery around forever, he would do it. If getting rid of slavery will keep the country together, he will do it. So he was very much into let's keep the country together. Mark appears to be completely knocked out. Has Mark ever given his 2 cents on Mark Shaw? Mark, sure. Spacey, Eric cut him off too quick too. No, Eric didn't do this. That what Spacey 11 is talking about is I also have a show on Layback News where we do legal panels every Friday, and Joe Neerman tends to go on rants. Joe Neerman is also known as Good Logic, and he'll go on a rant at the end of the show, and it kind of has become a theme, and I cut him off in the middle of the rant. It's completely planned ahead of time, but it's sort of hilarious because everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of people are like, why'd you cut Joe off? What's going on? Why'd you cut off Joe? Is everything okay? Why'd you cut off Joe?
I don't know.
I don't know. So we got Mark on the phone.
Dude, it's just unrelenting assault on human decency. I mean, I'm not a tech guy, but everything just continues to shut down in my world. But now you've taught me a lot, Eric.
Oh, good. Hey, having the phone, you know what? The same reason it's a pain in the ass that we have to do this. It's also a miracle that you can get on your phone and jump back.
Oh, no, I know.
So it's kind of a mixed bag. It's like, yeah, I'm angry at the moment, but thank God that option is available, even though it's not ideal. But let's run through the rest of the super chats here, and we'll be shifting to locals for a brief spell to cover our locals comments afterward. And I encourage everyone to go. On that note, we even have a coupon code for our birthday, and I'll repeat it at the end and give it out to everyone. It's in the description of Rumble and YouTube, so you might want to go to locals now. And if you use that coupon code, you will get full access to our locals for 1 month.
What?
Yes. So you can interact, you can chat, you can get every benefit there is. And even after that month, it's still free to stay on. You'll just not be able to comment as much, but you'll still be able to watch all the content, and you can get any notifications if anything happens. But let's go through these. Bobby Bronco. I know a woman who played hooky with friends to see the president in Dealey Plaza on November 22nd, 1963. They were threatened at the time not to speak about what they saw, and she's still afraid.
I agree. And she's not alone. Let me just put it that way. She's not alone.
Andrew Hoff, I'm not sure. Australia, the
How
Democrats.
is this, by the way? Does this sound and look okay? Can we do the show? Or?
Yeah, it's fine. It's tolerable.
Okay.
The Democrats had planned this from 2008 to be a totalitarian regime. The election of Trump in 2016 was not planned for, and 2020 and beyond is a Democrat revenge that there will be never a Republican president again.
I
like
can't
that.
argue. I can't really argue with that. I mean, from what we've learned, that may be completely true.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the plan, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Let's stop
when
it.
they talk about rounding up the MAGAs and putting them in education camps, I mean, who jokes about that? I mean, just think about it. I mean, this is something that people don't even joke about on the political arena, and yet this is what they're talking about. Maybe they're not joking.
Yes. Sorry, I want to get that. Jim Satala, when I saw the insurrection at the Capitol this week and all the other supposed members of the tribe supporting Hamas, all I could think of was my bubby yelling, you read that, Ashande Far de Goyim at the TV.
I can't see, it's too small, but it's Ashanda for the Goyim is what it says. I can't see the words, but I know it's
is it like a shame,
it's a shame that the Goyim are doing this. That's all I could say.
Oh, okay. Well, by the way, I'm sure that they're all going to be locked up for 2 years before going to trial, right?
Well, it's interesting that there's absolutely no discussion of anything of equality related to the other event. Again, the fact that the New York Times has not written an editorial saying there's no comparison between the two events or anything is astounding. They're not even writing a denouncing of the two event comparison. Because one thing I've learned is when the left has no defense, they ignore an event. Right, Eric?
Yeah, does ever happen?
Never happened. Yeah.
And then by the time you bring it up a year later, that's old.
Yeah.
It's kind of like latches and standing, right? It's either, hey, I'm standing. Oh, hey, it's too late. Should have brought it then. It's like, well, I was. What are you talking about? Lynn Bleckstein. After my father escaped the Russians in World War II, he lived in the British zone in West Germany. He stole ammo and equipment from the British in exchange for food. These military supplies made it to Israel in 1948.
Wow, that's a great story.
Yeah,
I never heard that before. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is good. Dustin, good old Dustin. Dustin Russell, I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to defend it. Right or wrong, I'm going to defend it. Cameron Fry, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's where we're at. Preach it, Mark. Your microphone will not work on the iPhone. Don't try.
Who said that?
I did. Just trust me. Your iPhone's not new.
It didn't work. It didn't work.
I know.
I'm not giving up. I have the fighting technical spirit of Eric Hunley now. I try everything until proven to be, it's an experiment.
Okay, well, just trust me on this one. Okay, it's not going to work. If you had the iPhone 15, maybe.
Right. Note to self, iPhone 15. Note to self.
There you go. John Comos. I live in a town over Farmingville, Long Island, that housed a Nazi summer camp for kids back in the 30s. Congrats on the 100K and happy birthday.
Right. That's what I was saying. These Nazi summer camps were out there. I know where that is. I know where that summer camp was. He is not inaccurate about that. There was a summer camp out there. And when I say summer camp, I mean in Nazi SS lederhosen, parading with Nazi music and doing Nazi cooking and Nazi other stuff. There were some regular Germans there, German Americans, who did go there as a camp. But the point of the matter is they had infiltrated every aspect of American society, including summer camps.
Wow, insane. I'm trying to put the comment inside the chat so people can go to locals as we're wrapping up here. Do you think JFK would have been a major player today?
Well, he would have been 100 some odd years old, so highly doubt.
Good point. And his health wasn't that great.
Well, we did a piece at Lampoon called "What If Kennedy Had Lived," and he had gray hair and he was super old, and it was a joke, obviously, but it showed him as an aged man. But that was in 1984. I mean, that issue was 1984, but And then we did another issue that said it was a Volkswagen floating upside down, which was the ad for Volkswagen at the time. Volkswagen, again, the Germanic people made a Hitler car called Volkswagen, the people's car. And the Volkswagen ad was that it floated on water. And we did a cover story that if, I hate to even say this, if Ted Kennedy had driven a Volkswagen, he'd be president today.
Isn't that the only one that you got actually fined for in a stuck?
It wasn't fined. We got sued and we lost.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it was a lawsuit by Volkswagen.
Okay, and I knew that was the only one that seemed to go wrong.
Well, that and Mickey Mouse skiing down a girl's breasts in one of the early issues. That was the settlement with Disney.
I'm sure it was over a trademark, right?
Yeah.
Meatloaf was at Parkland Hospital. I have heard that.
What about it? So was Bill Paxton. So what?
Well, it's an interesting question. A lot of babies were there too at the time, I bet.
Yeah.
Literally just born. All right. On that note, everyone, I have pinned the comment with a link to this show on Locals. There's a code there that you can use. If you're not a Locals member right now, you can join it. You can use the code to get a month free so you can test it all out. If you don't want to, that's fine too. You could just be a member and say, I don't want to do all the benefit. The code is birthday, all caps, because it's our birthday, and I thought it'd be really cool to give that away. And so it's from now until the end of October. The code birthday will work. It's in the description. And I hope to see you there.
Where?
And we're going to go
over there now. We're going there now.
We're going over to Locals. And
Well, let me
we're
know.
gonna
I mean,
fish-
I've got.
we could just hang out and hang out. And
I
we're-
have tech PTSD at this point, so please
right.
don't make it any more jarring than it already is.
Oh, okay. Well, you're going to
Do
be.
I have to do anything, or can I stay?
No, all you have to do is just sit there and look beautiful. I'm going to close it out with our outro, and we will still be there on Locals. I hope to see a lot more of you there. And we're off.